I got set back about a week because I had to move several tons of construction debris, but that's all done, so let's get back to it. Things are going to move a bit quickly here. Here's the leaderboard for a refresher so you can remember where we are, because we're moving straight into round 3, the rally stage. I'll cover any changes made to the competitors when we get into the sectors, but for now, we're just looking at a flyover. There will be 3 sectors in round 3, which compose the rally stage, starting with Sultan's Curse and the Twin Bridges. Those are the 2 segments, let's say, of Sector 1. Sector 2 begins immediately afterward, starting with Savage Lands, which is a dirt section here wrapping around a tree cluster, moving into some haphazardly thought out collection of wood and screws, which I'm not even going to name because I don't think it's too long for this world, and finishes with a quick run through the loose dirt of Roots Remain and across the final bridge in the canyon, which will bring us to the final sector and the newest part of the course, the sector as yet unnamed. We'll be using the ravine portion. I would say one of the more difficult portions, but they're all pretty difficult in this section. And the timer will end right when they pass off the rock onto dirt. Scoring will include a full 25 points per sector. So up to 75 points for the whole course. And there will be a placing bonus where competitors will be rewarded based on their finishing position on their cumulative elapsed time. Tell this video is already going to run long. Let's get straight into it. We're still running in reverse order. So Daphne, current points leader, is on the course first, which, as I had mentioned in a previous video, is not specifically an advantage. You don't get to see how any of the other competitors chose their lines. As such, Daphne a little bit tentative here through Sultan's Curse. Has never run this particular section before, I don't think. Some of the other competitors have been through here in other videos, but this is her first time through, so I don't think 2-speed was engaged at any point. So moving along somewhat gingerly, a little bit uncharacteristic of Daphne, but finishes Sector 1 with a 50.02 second time. As with rallies, we're straight into Sector 2, no breaks. The way I do this, some insight into the process, is I do a full run of the course, no cameras, no nothing, because I can't multitask well enough to manage that. So I just run the course with a stopwatch, and I do lap splits at the sector points. So I just run this straight through, and immediately afterward I have to go back and drive it again and pull all the camera angles, and that is 10 times as stressful and 20 times as time consuming. I think it took on average right around 25 minutes to do the camera work for each run. And as you'll when we get to the elapsed times for the course, you can see how little time it actually takes to run this. Daphne finishing Sector 2, 46.09. Straight into Sector 3. All new. So new it doesn't have a name yet. And it's pretty rugged through this ravine section. That stop block right there in the middle is tough to get over if you have any kind of underhang, so Daphne just kind of bunny hops her way through. but her long travel suspension is relatively well suited to this. Being the first competitor of the day, she didn't know whether to stay to the left, to the right, or try to straddle it, so she gets hung up here in the center and definitely loses some time. We don't know yet how quickly others are going to make it, but this seems like a tentative run. 44:19 in Sector 3 for a final elapsed 2 minutes 20.3 seconds. Showing how he got his name. Second up on the course. Sitting second on the leaderboard currently, Zoidberg. He's off a little more quickly than Daphne was, but he also does have the benefit of not having anything bumper-like, so his approach and departure angles are much better. Gets hung up a little bit here, loses some time, I think, in the first stage. Moving along probably about the same as Daphne, maybe a little more quickly. He just barely fits through the bridges, and that will come into play notably later. Finishes Sector 1 with a 37.22, so actually significantly faster than what Daphne managed. He forgot his start line entering Sector 2. He's going to lose a second or two there, but shouldn't have any trouble navigating this flat stuff, as his top speed's about 5 miles an hour. I'm sure he hit top speed a couple times out here on this course. He's doing pretty well on what for today I'm just going to call the contraption. This thing just happened to fit into an existing channel in the dirt, so it just got dropped in to add some interest to this section, and it turned out to be an absolute bear. It was so difficult for some rigs to get over. Not in the runs. In the 8 runs, 44:68, Sector 2. In the 8 runs, I had one rig come off the contraption as I was running the timed runs. Filming them, on the other hand, I think there were a couple competitors that I had to reset and rerun 10 or 12 times. I just couldn't do it because I can't stand where I want to stand without getting in the way of the camera. So Zoidberg finishing up Sector 3 in a 41:03 for a total elapsed time of 2 minutes, 2.93 seconds. Third on the leaderboard and running third, Blue Sky High, who has some experience on the Sultan's Curse from the game of horse with Lil Yella, so should do okay here. He also has pretty short overhangs front and rear and is making what looks like pretty easy work. This first section hasn't made any big mistakes getting caught up. He's through the rough stuff, no problem. And if Zoidberg can fit down the bridges, he should fit down the bridges just fine. Oh, little hang there. It'll cost him a second or so. And there's parts like this where you'd think, well, you should just be able to floor it, go full blast. If you get a wheel tangled up in those cross braces on the bridge, best case scenario is you just get stuck. 40.53. Worst case scenario is you're going to break something because there's just no give. It's just like getting a tire. It's as bad as getting a tire pin between rocks. So this dirt is really, really loose, and it looks like, oh, well, you could just drive around. But rock crawlers are not especially adept at this, and it's so powdery in this part that if you bury a tire, you're going to have to back up out of it, and it's going to cost you a second or two. So it's kind of better to take it slow. And he's taking this real slow. A lot of droop, keeping that wheel down. Blue Sky High does this obstacle remarkably well. Just takes it slowly, gets through easily. Moving up into Roots Remain, which is a sector that is on the plans for future improvement for sure. This is just dirt with logs on the sides of it. I had to put the logs somewhere. Finishing Sector 2 with a 44-19. Which, if memory serves, was right between the previous two. Let's see how he manages the unnamed. I've gotten some good suggestions in the comments. I haven't been able to commit to anything yet because I need to work up a name for the whole, I guess you would call it, complex. And then each running line, I guess, would have a name. Each subsection of the whole complex. Like this ravine area, which I'm just calling the ravine. And then there's a big side hill portion beside that. Blue Sky High is doing okay. He looks like he did a little better than Daphne, but I think Zoidberg might have been a little quicker through here. He's going to end Sector 3 with a 41-28. Really close, actually, for a total ET of 206 even. Coming out in fourth is a vehicle that I'm going to have to talk about a little bit here through the run. I'm calling him Remutation, formerly known as Mutation. The cage was removed and the parts from a Red Cat Everest were installed, including the body and the rails, because I thought that there was something wrong with the suspension geometry, which was affecting how Mutation was crawling. What it turned out to have happened when I had the thing fully disassembled is the diff housings for the spools, front and rear. The ring gear is metal, and the spool housing itself is plastic. So one of those had stripped out. So Mutation did the entire last round in 3-wheel drive. It was the driver's side front wheel, basically had no drive. It would turn. And here's where special dispensation was given to Mutation, because it's so wide, he won't fit through the bridges, but he's not wide enough to straddle the bridges and go over them. So he was given the option to bypass the bridges, as it's much further and it's definitely not going to save him any time. And it does not. He finishes Sector 1 with a 52-57. Then goes right back the way he came. So an Everest 10 suffers from a monumental amount of torque twist. It's rare to see that body sitting level. I would have just run him without the body and just the rails with the electronics out, but it is in the nature of Remutation to snap oversteer vertically. That's the best way I can think to state it. One wheel will hook and it just twists the whole rig like a pretzel, and you can get a full 180-degree twist between the front and the rear axle, and it doesn't work well for anything, and it's almost impossible to predict. Like, you can't feel it going over. A wheel hooks and then it's gone. And Sector 2 with a 52-51. These are not fast. He has to bypass the bridges, and that's costing him, I would guess, 5 seconds per bridge. And then seeing the others come through here, this ravine is particularly narrow. His ground clearance is not particularly great. He's torque twisting from here to never. And having him get over this, you basically 3-wheeled over it. But you can see here that torque twist. The one tire is biting and it's just forcing it up. There's 50 weight oil in those shocks to try to slow them down. But it's just so much leverage because it's so wide. He's really having a rough time. This is a Lil Yella type experience. as Will Yella saw round 2 finish for him. And Sector 3 with a 59.88, almost a minute, for a total ET of 2 minutes 44.96 seconds. That is not fast. Colonel Mustard out next, hoping that on a semi-trail stage to improve on that current 5th place setting. Almost went straight over the front there. He's being definitely more aggressive. He figures, I'm in the bottom half, might as well go at this. He's doing pretty well. The SCX 10.3, for having absolutely nothing done to it at all, Colonel Mustard does some work. Those are even stock tires. As far as stock tire fitted vehicles, he definitely puts out the best efforts. And Colonel Mustard is going to trundle across the line here after he finishes the second bridge to complete Sector 1 with an elapsed time of 41:19. All right. Entering the Savage Lands. This is kind of in Colonel Mustard's wheelhouse. Compared to the TRX-4, I would say the SCX 10.3 straddles the line more evenly between crawler and trail truck. It's got a good amount of ground clearance. His handling out of the box is better than a TRX-4, particularly at speed. He has more gearing reduction. He's got that little bit longer of a wheelbase, so his breakover's a bit better. He handles this dirt stuff no problem. He actually looks really composed through here. Fits through the bridges nicely as he's narrow. And he finishes Sector 2 with a 46.51. Not great, not awful. Gonna dive in to the ravine. Caught that little triangular rock whose purpose is to hang up rigs that forget that triangular rock is a thing. See how he manages on the big bump here in the middle. He's opting for an attack to the right. Take a little stab at it, and he's over. This part seems to slow the pace down quite a bit. Once clear of that big knob, they can move right through. A little rough here. Wraps up Sector 3 with a pretty fast 32.75 for just a hair over 2 minutes. I think he might be in first. As we get here to our 6th competitor of the day, I got some splaining to do. Jolly Green, or I guess the entity formerly known as Jolly Green, underwent a fairly significant rework. The wheelbase was shortened from the 12.8 to 12.3, and he was fitted with a J-Concepts GMC K10 body, which took about 2 pounds off of his total weight, but he still has his weight very low, and this radically altered his characteristics. He finishes Sector 1 in a 34.51. While I was making those changes, it became really very clear to me that a 2-speed gearbox on a truck running a 3300 kV brushless motor is overkill at the very least. I have almost no use for second gear. It's running a 9-tooth pinion and a 45-tooth spur, and in its low gear, I'm making air quotes here, low gear, is good for around, I think, 12 miles an hour. Once that 2 pounds came off the top, he can actually use that speed. So he powers through here with no issues whatsoever to finish Sector 2 in a 38.71. He's going to drop straight in. And he's been watching the other competitors for sure, 6th in the running order. This was actually the second morning. I managed to get 4 trucks done in the first day. He just passed that center hump section so fast, I didn't even notice it. Rewatching it back, I missed it. So he's already wrapping up Sector 3 in a blisteringly fast 28:43, which brings his elapsed time down to 1 minute, 41.65 seconds. Not to sound like I'm overselling this, but that's fast. Moving on to number 7 in the running order, Ironsides. So we've still got defender representation here in the competition. As he was sitting pretty far down the leaderboard, Ironsides is just going for it. Like, he's got proper bumpers, front and rear. He doesn't have a ton of ground clearance relative to some of the others. His breakover is not great. His approach and departure angles are normal, like scale-like, I would say. So he has to be more choosy about his lines, and he's got too much speed even with that 5-pole motor, but he blasts through the bridges to finish Sector 1 in a 44:32. Just going to drop straight in here to Sector 2. I believe, if memory serves, none of the... Zoidberg did not use 4-wheel steer or dig. I don't believe it ever came into play. Ironsides used both the 2-speed and the lockers. He unlocked diffs for the dirt sections to keep the steering tight and locked them up for portions like this, and had no real problems. The longer wheelbase seems to help in the more uneven sections. The suspension is still a bit pogo stick-like, but it pushes him through Sector 2 in a 59:12. Most of that loss was the contraption. He did really well otherwise. So he's got nothing to lose, knowing he put a minute into Sector 2. So he's just going for it. If he can manage to get up over this, and does, in just 2 hits, longer wheelbase. I would think a shorter wheelbase would help there, but clearly not. The longer wheelbase vehicles are the ones that seem to clear it the easiest. It's going to finish him Sector 3 with a quite respectable 34:39. That gives Ironsides a total ET of 2 minutes 17.83 seconds, which at this point I genuinely can't remember where that falls, but it doesn't seem awful. I honestly, I don't remember. So we're going to move on to the final competitor of the day, which is Lil Yella, who I don't see how he can't improve on his disastrous round 2 performance. He's also running last, which I think is a pretty big advantage, as you get to see who's gone where and who did it better. So he's picking his way through Sultan's Curse pretty well, because obviously Lil Yella is not happy sitting all the way at the bottom of the leaderboard, so he's going at it here. He's trying to post up some respectable times here on these sectors. Finishes Sector 1 in a 37.40. Pretty good. And he's off like a shot onto Sector 2. We'll see how he manages the contraption. I think that will be the big decider here. There's really there's 2 points that really are deciding competitor placement for this round, and that's the last minute haphazardly added contraption, which I threw in just for some visual interest, because it's turning out to be quite difficult. More difficult than I remember. And clearing that knob in the ravine, that sort of dome-shaped chunk of curb that seems to perfectly high center pretty much everybody unless they can kind of power hop over it. So through the trailing section, Lil Yella not having any problems. And he closes out Sector 2 with a 5108. Not great, not terrible. He did have some issues on the contraption. He had to take it very slowly so as not to fall off. But sometimes that's what you got to do. He's also going for a right side approach on the knob, and that works spectacularly. He might have been the only rig to just clear it without taking a second dig at it. He's got to navigate this section a little more slowly here so as not to get hung up and have to throw it into reverse. Finishes Sector 3 in a 3883, which is okay for a total ET of 207.31, which wraps up the competitor run-throughs of the rally stage. So we're going to go into the scoring for the individual sectors. There's the running order, and here's the finishing order. That's Jolly Green with a surprising lead out over everyone. I think the rest of the board going down seems pretty much right. Sector 2, there's the running order. Here's the finishing order. Once again, Jolly Green well out. A tight group, 2nd through 5th. But Jolly Green winning again. And lastly, we move on to the unnamed. The running order moves over into the finish order, and it's Jolly Green again. Colonel Mustard with a fantastic showing, and the surprise of the entire event, Ironsides, ending there in 3rd place. With 3 sector wins, the new Jolly Green has obviously dominated this. There's the bonus times splitting up. Daphne having a rough week on those split times. So there you have it. The new and improved, and definitely improved, Jolly Green taking full advantage of his mods to have his week in the sun. Week 1 definitely went to Zoidberg. Week 2 was definitely Daphne's week and or round to win. And this round went solidly to Jolly Green, who, yeah, he's not a defender anymore, but he is, it's not an easy word to throw around, but infinitely is an infinitely more capable vehicle at this point. So let's take a quick look at the points totals, the cumulative totals, the sectors plus bonus for everybody for the week, and then see how that affects the leaderboard standings, which I get the feeling are going to get shaken up a little bit. And they certainly do. Zoidberg moves back into 1st, reclaiming his lead, but Jolly Green shoots up from 6th to 2nd. Daphne drops from 1st to 3rd. I think Blue Sky High lost 1 place. I have 2 4ths there, but Colonel Mustard is actually in 5th. And then down to Mutation with a pretty poor showing overall. His mods did not help out. So that's that then. Crawcross Raid. Round 3 in the books. And I'm going to wrap this up quick. Trying to keep this under half an hour. Be sure to like, subscribe if you already haven't. Leave comments below. And I and the rest of the crew look forward to seeing you in the next one. And as one of my favorite YouTubers is off to say, peace.